Welcome back to another video, and today we got our college football semifinal predictions. And not only are we going to be predicting the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl here today, we're also going to be predicting our national champion based off of the four teams left. We're going to take a look at our preseason prediction and our original playoff bracket one last time. And we're also going to recap all the games that have happened so far because I have not talked to you guys about college football in a couple weeks. It's been before since I believe it's been before the playoffs even started was the last time. Yeah, the prediction video was the last video I made. So yeah, we're gonna recap each game, and yeah, it's gonna be back to the normal schedule. Speaking of schedule, if you're new around here, make sure you subscribe, turn on the noties. We're posting college basketball every Monday, college football every Tuesday, NFL every Wednesday, and NBA every Thursday, as well as MLB content when baseball is, up and running. Which, I mean, you got a couple months till opening day, so it is coming up here shortly. But with that being said, let's go ahead and look at the preseason prediction. So this was the prediction I made before the entire regular season. My national champion was Ohio State. I had them beating Oregon. We did just see that game, and last video, coming into the playoffs, I thought Ohio State probably not going to win at all, but they still had a chance to. Now it's not looking so crazy anymore. I am an Ohio State fan, so I would love nothing more. But yeah, I got two of the Final Four right. That's not bad. I had Texas and Ohio State getting there. Obviously, there's some misses. Florida State, Ole Miss, Missouri, Miami. Miami was close. Florida State's the huge miss here. But it's not terrible, I would say. I mean, Utah is another big miss. But going into the season, I mean, this was kind of normal to see a bracket someone like this. Now let's go ahead and look at my original prediction for the playoff bracket. So this is what I had. I had Texas, Oregon, Penn State, and Georgia. So again, only two of the four teams. Not great there. I mean, I knew Ohio State and Oregon was a coin flip. I knew Georgia and Notre Dame was a coin flip. I just ultimately went with the wrong one there. I mean, I was trying to be unbiased picking Oregon. Deep down in my heart, I thought Ohio State could win, but I don't want to jinx us, so I went with Oregon. And they were the team that I felt the most confident to win it all, so I picked them to win it all. Um, but here we are, and obviously this is what I wanted. I want Ohio State to win. I want Ohio State to win every game they play. Um, but yeah, Penn State got there, Texas got there, so Texas I had in my playoff prediction and my um, preseason prediction making the semifinals, so that was good there. I had Penn State here, and I had Ohio State in my preseason, so 2 out of 4 in both of these. Now let's go ahead and move on to our official semifinal prediction. So this is the bracket as it shapes up right now. We'll talk about each of these games, starting off with Texas. We'll just go through these four teams, how they got here. So Texas goes out, beats Clemson. It was kind of a close game. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. This was probably the least memorable game, I feel like, of all of the playoff games. I mean, honestly, I don't even remember this game. This was a while ago. This was a couple weeks ago now. Yeah, Texas wins 38-24. Clemson kind of made a late comeback, but the Texas was up 28 to 10 and a half. There was a point Clemson got it to a 7-point game in the fourth quarter, but Texas did hold on. Now, Texas, this past week, played an Arizona State team that I thought had no chance in this game. I thought that game would be maybe the biggest blowout in the playoffs. Boy, was I wrong. The Longhorns squeak away a win in double overtime, 39-31. Cam Skattebo throws a passing touchdown. He gets whatever it was, 80 receiving yards. He had over 100 on the ground, I believe. He was tearing the defense up. The defense that I thought was one of the best, if not the best defense in the country. I mean, this was a pretty crazy game. Texas was up 17-3 at halftime. Arizona State comes all the way back. They get a safety, a field goal in the third quarter, making a 9-point game. Texas then scores again. It was 24-8 with 10 minutes left in the fourth. Arizona State scores a touchdown, gets the 2-point. They score another touchdown and get another 2-point after Quinn Ewers throws a terrible pick. And they start off over the first overtime with a touchdown. Texas answers, and then Texas does score on the first play of double overtime. Pick off Sam Levitt there to finish out the game. And yeah, they survive. So Texas, I was feeling a whole lot more confident. I said last video that if Texas does have to play Ohio State, I really like their chances more than I would maybe against Oregon, just based off matchup. And I somewhat still stand by that. But, the reason I'm starting to get some hesitation on that is Ohio State, the past two games have been absolutely lights out. First of all, they get Tennessee coming to town. Tennessee fans actually showed up in the shoe. There was quite a bit of them. Ohio State goes up 21-0 in the first quarter, never looks back. They win 42-17. It was really 42-10. The Volunteers scored with less than 2 minutes left. It was a garbage time touchdown. So they really won by over 30 points. 42-17, just an absolute domination. I mean, they got out to a lead early. They never looked back. They were throwing the ball finally. Maybe that Michigan game finally realized, oh, we have a good quarterback. We can actually trust him. We have the best receiving room in the country. We have the best receiver in the country. Maybe let's use them. And yeah, they've been launching the ball. We saw that against Oregon as well. They were throwing it to Jeremiah Smith. It felt like every play he went absolutely ballistic. He had, what was it, over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. He finished with like 187 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, this dude is gonna be he's only a freshman. They got 2 more years of him. He's gonna be really good in the NFL, to say the least. He's already really good. People are saying if he was eligible to be drafted, he would be the #1 pick this year, and I honestly don't disagree with that. Now, maybe just because of the positional value, but even then, I think if he was in this draft class, he would end up being the best player in the draft. But yeah, then Ohio State goes to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, blows out Oregon 41-21. Again, kind of closer than what it was. It was 34-0 at one point. Ohio State really just kind of took it easy the rest of the game. Oregon did score right before half to make it 34-8 heading into half. Oregon did end up scoring a little bit in the second half, but Ohio State really wasn't playing. They really didn't have to do much. Yeah, Jeremiah Smith, 7 catches, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns. Travion Henderson had 94 yards on only 8 carries and 2 touchdowns. He obviously had that long run. Will Howard played lights out, over 300 passing yards, 3 TDs, no interceptions. Yeah, this was just an absolute domination from Ohio State from start to finish. They were playing great defensively, great offensively. And it's good to see that the air raid Buckeyes from the Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud era look like they're finally back. They just chuck the ball deep. They throw the ball till they get a lead, then they can run it because, I mean, they have arguably the best running back duo in the country. I've been saying they do, but ultimately, I don't know. I kind of want to take it back. Moving on to this next team. Speaking of running back duos, this is the duo that I would argue may be better. I think I might have to give the edge to the Nittany Lions duo. I mean, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, I believe, are both over 1,000 rushing yards on the season. That's crazy. These two guys have been tearing it up in the playoffs. Penn State has beaten both SMU and Boise State by 3 scores. They win 38-10 against SMU. Defense, run game, everything's looking lights out. They then go out and beat Boise State 31-14. I thought this game would be kind of close. I was mistaken. Penn State blew the brakes off, and then Boise State just couldn't move the ball. And yeah, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, man, what a duo. Tyler Warren really hasn't done anything for them. I do expect him to figure it out here in this Notre Dame game. I think they're going to need him. I think he's going to be a key piece of the game plan. But yeah, the way that they've looked, the domination they've had, and they really haven't even had to used Tyler Warren yet. I think that's a good sign. Moving on to the last team here in the semifinals, and then we'll do our predictions. Notre Dame goes out, beats Indiana 27-17. The final score is closer than it really was. Indiana scored a touchdown. Indiana actually scored two touchdowns under 2 minutes to go because they got an onside kick. So it really was 27-3. Yeah, Indiana scores two touchdowns late in the game. It doesn't matter. Notre Dame wins 27-17. Jeremiah Love has a big day, 108 rushing yards. Then they go out to the Sugar Bowl and play Georgia, and they really dominated them, 23-10. Georgia really couldn't move the ball at all. I mean, it was just absolute. I mean, I don't really know how to. Notre Dame looked by far like the better team. Uh, they had great plays on special teams. They got great plays on defense. The offense really didn't even have to do much here. Uh, Georgia started out with a lead 3-0. They got a field goal there in the second quarter. Notre Dame answers with two field goals. Then with, I believe, under 30 seconds left, Notre Dame was up 6-3. Georgia inside of their own, what was it, own 20-yard line. They try to throw for it, and they get picked off. Notre Dame turns that into a touchdown before the half. And going into the half, Notre Dame's up 13-3. They got all the momentum in the world. Georgia's hoping that in the second half they can get a stop on the opening drive, go down and score, get the momentum back on their side. And the worst nightmare happens for the Bulldogs. Not only does Notre Dame go into halftime with all the momentum in the world, up 13-3, they come out of the half and return the opening kick 98 yards for a touchdown. They go up 20-3. Georgia does respond with a touchdown to make it 20-10. I thought there was maybe some life there, but the rest of the game, Georgia just couldn't move the ball. Trevor Etienne did absolutely nothing. Yeah, really nobody on the offense showed up for the Bulldogs. They just couldn't move the ball. Notre Dame wins 23-10 in a physical, low-scoring defensive game. And yeah, Notre Dame, good on Marcus Freeman getting into the semifinals. And I think they have a pretty good shot there against Penn State. But now, let's go ahead and make our predictions. So starting off at the top, we got the 8 seed versus the 5 seed. Ohio State versus Texas. This is going to be the Friday night game. I probably should have done it in the other order, but whatever. Ohio State coming in as the 5.5-point favorites. I'm not sure if I love that. Ohio State, yes, have looked like the best team in the playoffs so far, blowing out both of their opponents. And it's not like Penn State where they haven't played anyone. This is Tennessee and Oregon we're talking about. Tennessee was of the higher seeds in the first round. Tennessee was the best team on the road, if that makes sense. I think you guys get what I'm trying to say. Tennessee was the best team of Clemson, SMU, Indiana. Tennessee was better than them by far. Ohio State blew them out, and then Ohio State went out and beat the only undefeated team left in the country, in Oregon, in dominant fashion as well. The reason I get hesitant on this game is, one, well, I already mentioned, I said last week I think Texas has a better chance to beat Ohio State than Texas would against Oregon. I think I'd still agree with that just because the defense creates so many turnovers, and that can actually kill Ohio State sometimes. So that does concern me. The defense has been lights out, except for last week, which makes me feel a little bit of hope. The other thing is, this is going to be played in Dallas, or in Arlington, sorry, in Texas. So it's going to be essentially a home game for Texas. That seems a little unfair. I'm not going to, complain about it. It is technically a neutral site game. It's in the Cowboy Stadium. So hopefully Ohio State fans can show out. I think they will travel well. They typically do. But in this game, on Texas, I know they have one of the best corners in the country, but not only do you have Jeremiah Smith, you have Carnell Tate, you have Ibuka, you have Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Don't forget about them. And Will Howard's been playing his best football in the past two games, so I think he's ready. I think the offense is complete, and don't even get me started on the defense. The defense might have all 11 guys go to the NFL here in the next couple of years. That's not even an exaggeration. Maybe 9, 10, maybe even all 11 will get drafted at some point. I mean, you look at this D line. First of all, JTT, Jack Sawyer, Tyleek Williams, Ty Hamilton. That is just a dangerous front four. Then you got Cody Simon, you got Sonny Styles there at linebacker. Safeties, Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs, probably the best safety duo in the country, maybe the best defensive player in the country in Caleb Downs. Denzel Burke and Igbinosun do worry me a little bit just with, how fast the Texas receivers are with Golden, with Isaiah Bond. Um, I I think Ohio State wins. And I hate doing this because I feel like every time I pick them to win, they lose. I just can't ignore the fact that they've blown out Oregon and Tennessee. I think there's there's some extra motivation in this team in Ryan Day. I think Ohio State gets it done. I know it's essentially a road game. I know Texas. Um, there's a lot of signs, maybe matchup wise, pointing that Texas could have the advantage. But you got to remember, Texas really hasn't looked good against Clemson and Arizona State. Like I said, it was a one-score game in the fourth quarter against Clemson. They probably should have lost against Arizona State if that targeting call goes the other way. Arizona State wins that game, so they probably should have lost that game. And then you look at Ohio State, they've blown out Tennessee and Oregon. So that's just two completely different ends of the spectrum. I'm going to take Ohio State. I'm going to trust what I've seen so far in the playoffs from the Buckeyes. Moving on over to the other semifinal game. This one is really 50-50. I mean, both of these are really good games. Don't get me wrong. This one I have kind of some trouble figuring out who to go with. So let's look at Penn State's side of things. So yes, they've cruised through so far in the playoffs, but they played SMU and Boise State. Now they play a really physical team in Notre Dame. I will say, here's the things pointing towards, for me at least, pointing me towards picking Penn State to win. First of all, that running back duo is just lethal. We've seen what elite running back duos can do. I mean, the Lions in the NFL have they're the one seed in the NFC, and that's a lot to do with their run game. I mean, Ohio State has ran the ball very nice over the course of this season. A running back duo can get you places. Michigan's done it. So to have the best running back duo, that's a huge advantage. First of all, just because when one gets tired, you got another guy to put in. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Cannot stress enough there. Another thing is Tyler Warren really hasn't had to do anything yet, and Penn State's still blown out these teams. He is arguably their best player. He's probably the best tight end in the country. And then defensively, you got Abdul Carter off the edge. That's going to be a problem for Notre Dame, as well as Penn State's entire defense. They have a very solid physical defense. I hate to bring this up, but I still do worry about James Franklin a little bit, although I'll say I still do worry about Marcus Freeman as well. So I think those two kind of cancel out. I don't really have much of an argument there. I think both those coaches are on, kind of similar, even grounds. When looking at Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love is one of the best running backs in the country. So this is going to be a low-scoring, gritty, run the ball, get stops on defense. This is going to be a little more slow pace compared to Ohio State, Texas, where I think that could just be a shootout. Even with those two probably having the two best defenses in the country in Texas and Ohio State, I think that game could be a shootout. Just with the way both of them are playing right now. But in this game specifically, I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game. It's in It's in Miami, so there's no really home field advantage for either of these teams being in Indiana and Pennsylvania. Notre Dame does, I believe, have the bigger fan base, but I think both fans will travel well. Um, this is going to be a great game. I'm very torn on who to pick in this one. Notre Dame is the 1.5 point favorite. I think the game plan for Notre Dame has to be get Riley Leonard going on the ground. I think that could be a problem for Penn State. Now, if Abdul Carter can contain it, then that really shuts down Notre Dame. I think you look at the matchup, I might go Penn State here, and I actually did have Penn State, but I am going to go with Notre Dame, and the reason why is Penn State's played SMU and Boise State the past 2 weeks, and yes, they've looked very good in those games. They didn't struggle like Texas has, but Notre Dame blew out Indiana and blew out Georgia, who I was a team that I had in the national championship. Notre Dame has played a physical team. I think they're just ready for it more so than Penn State. Again, I think matchup wise, you could argue Penn State kind of wins the matchup. Both sides of the ball. I mean, if like I said, if Abdul Carter can contain Riley Leonard, not let him get going, running the ball. If you can contain Jeremiah Love as well, the D line is very strong for Penn State. I know Notre Dame's O line. This game is going to be won at the line of scrimmage. You could you could argue Notre Dame is beat up, and after that physical game against Georgia, I wouldn't hate that argument. Again, I feel like a lot of the signs are pointing Penn State, and it almost makes you want to go out and switch to Penn State. I originally had Penn State winning this game. I've seen a lot of people pick Notre Dame. I'm going to stick with Notre Dame. I don't know. This one is so tough. Again, it's just Notre Dame just beat Georgia. I mean, Penn State hasn't beat a team like that really all season. They did play very good against Oregon, but I mean, they lost to Oregon, they lost to Ohio State. They don't really have the win. I mean, their best win's probably Boise State this year. Notre Dame just beat Georgia, so that's kind of why I'm going Notre Dame, just because I think they're going to be ready for this more. Penn State hasn't beaten a good team all year. I'm going to take Notre Dame, but again, matchup-wise, you could argue it favors Penn State. I said this in the Ohio State thing. I mean, I said matchup-wise, you could argue it actually favors Texas, and here I am picking the complete opposite of that in both these games. Maybe that comes back to bite me. Maybe it doesn't. But that's going to set up a national championship game of Ohio State and Notre Dame. They played each other last year. Ohio State did win. Now they get to see each other in the national championship game. I think, you can call me biased, I think if Ohio State gets past Texas, they're going to win it all. I think Texas is still the second best team out of these four. I think Ohio State, if they beat Texas. Now, you could argue they're beat up. They've played Tennessee, Oregon, and Texas in a row. You could argue they're tired. But I think Ryan Day is coaching. He knows what's being asked of him. It was very clear. All the fans, natty or bust. I mean, that's what the thing. That's what people have been saying since the offseason. I think Ohio State wins it all. I think they beat Notre Dame. I just think defensively, they're a better defense than Notre Dame. You could argue Notre Dame's better on the lines of scrimmage, but Ohio State's D line is still one of the best in the country. I know their O line kind of stinks, but they've been playing pretty good the past 2 games. It looks like they've figured something out at least. And on Notre Dame, I don't really know who's going to stop all these receivers, all these explosive weapons. I think Ohio State just comes out guns blazing once again. I think they could beat Notre Dame. I really do. Now, Texas still scares me. I know they haven't looked good. That's why I'm taking Ohio State, but Texas still does scare me. I would love nothing more as an Ohio State fan to start off the new year as the national champs. I think this is maybe the best Ohio State roster in terms of talent I've ever seen in my life. I have seen some pretty good teams. I saw the 2014 team that won it all. The 2019 team, I believe, was probably my favorite Ohio State team ever. That team was so talent loaded with Chase Young, Jeff Okudah, Fields, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave was still on that team, I think. Yeah, that team was crazy. The 2020 team as well. They lost in the national championship team, but I mean that team was still very good. The CJ Stroud teams were very good. But in terms of talent, I think this might be the best team I've ever seen. Um, I think Ohio State wins it all. I do. You can call me biased, but honestly, if we're being honest, out of these four teams, I think Ohio State has looked the best so far. So that's what I'm going to say. I still do worry that they're going to find a way to mess it up. Again, that Texas game really does scare me. I think Texas, people are counting them out. That kind of worries me. I think Ohio State got to go in it with the underdog mentality. I know they've been favored against Tennessee and Oregon, but they went in with the mindset that everyone's counting them out. Now it seems like everyone's taking them to win the national championship. I hope that doesn't get to their heads. I think Ohio State wins it all, though. But that is going to do it for the semifinal predictions. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you get on there, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Comment down below what you agree, what you disagree. Links in the description, as always, X, Twitch, TikTok, Discord. But that is going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys tomorrow with our NFL playoff predictions. Make sure you tune into that one.